So as you all know by now, this Pope Francis, is an interesting character. So around the edges of social policy, he sort of played footsie with the idea that the Catholic Church should be more modern, more reasonable, more humanitarian, bigger believers in equality. He said some things about gay people, for example, like, hey, it's how God made them, something to that effect. Talking about, Catholic priests can bless same-sex marriages, stuff like that. Now, he never goes all the way, right? He never just comes out and says, like, these people are 100% equal. They have the right to get married. We support them being able to get married. Gayness is not a sin, etc. He still has to work around the edges. Another good one is on, I think the one where he's still fairly conservative is abortion, right? Am I wrong about that? Put in the comment section. I feel like maybe there has been some stories where he's like been a little more understanding on abortion than other popes, even though he's still pro-life. But on many social issues, let's say, he's tried to modernize the church a little bit. Now, by the way, there's a very practical reason for that makes sense too, right? It's like your religion can go in the dustbin of history if you don't adjust accordingly. Some people will say, well, the whole point of a religious doctrine is that it's like ironclad and never changes. But good luck trying to recruit and have the church survive over the long run if you still believe in goofy ass things like gay people shouldn't be treated equally. So he's modernized around the edges. But honestly, the bigger thing about this Pope, which is even better, it's more positive, is on issues involving war and on issues involving the economy, he's not nibbling around the edges. I think to one extent or another, the Catholic Church is always going to be somewhat socially conservative. But on economic stuff, on foreign policy stuff, he's basically just good. Like, he basically just is good. So look at this. This is in Vatican News. Pope encourages Marxists and Christians to fight corruption and uphold rule of law. Pope Francis meets with representatives of the Dialop Transversal Dialogue Project, an initiative that invites socialists and Christians to work for a common ethic and invites them to build a better future for our polarized world. So this initiative started in 2014, and it looks like he's leaning more into it now. So listen to this. People who are poor, unemployed, homeless, immigrants, or exploited, as well as those killed by past dictatorships and turned into rubbish by the throwaway culture of the present, the level of a society civilization is measured by the way that they are treated, the Pope said. Pope Francis reiterated the centrality of the vulnerable, as well as the urgency of countering the triple scourge of corruption, abusive power, and lawlessness, both in politics and in society, in his address on Wednesday with representatives of the Dialop Transversal Dialogue Project. This is a dialogue project between socialists, Marxists, communists, and Christians aimed at formulating a common social ethic that can be proposed as a new narrative for a Europe in search of its identity, with an integral ecology between the social doctrine of the church and Marxist social critique at its core. In other words, he's like, look, Marxism is all about the working class, the poor, the downtrodden, the oppressed. And it's all about setting up a system which is more fair to them, which doesn't prioritize the profits of capitalists and the owner class at the expense of exploiting workers. And his point is, who are we kidding? Christianity is very similar to this. Who are we kidding? This is like Jesus was a Marxist before Marxism was a thing. He was a communist before communism was a thing. There's a lot of things that are contradictory in the Bible. There's no doubt about that. There's also some things that are not contradictory. The way Jesus feels about the wealthy versus how he feels about the poor. The way Jesus says you should treat the sojourners, which is just, the old school word for immigrants. There are some very consistent themes. Pacifism, nonviolence. These are very consistent themes in Christianity and also in various left-wing political movements throughout time. And so this is the Pope basically being like, hey, dog, who are we kidding here? We're allies. Let's keep it real. Who are we kidding? We're allies. Now, like I said, you might find some disagreement between Christians and socialists or communists or Marxists or all of them on social issues. And there may be some things there that are honestly irreconcilable in some way. But let's be honest. The thing that's so refreshing about this is, for the longest time, we've all said, Well, hold on now. Look at American evangelical Christians, for example, or prosperity gospel type Christians like Joel Osteen or, whoever. What's the other guy's name? Oh, I'm blanking on him. The black prosperity gospel guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Creflo Dollar, that guy. Like, you look at that and you go, you're just not preaching what's actually in your holy books. You're just not doing it. This idea that Jesus is like a modern day Republican, this idea that Jesus is like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and Jesus wants you to be a successful billionaire capitalist, it's just absurd. It's absurd. It's not real. But certainly in the context of the U.S., the most politically active Christians, outside of black Christians, which are more in line with leftist movements, but like white evangelical Christians are overwhelmingly super conservative. And now they're all like in the cult of Trump. This is the head of the Catholic Church, the Pope, who in their ideology is the closest thing to God on this earth. This is him being like, yeah, let's keep it real. If you're a Christian, you should be like a socialist or a Marxist or a communist. Because if you care about looking after the sick, the downtrodden, the one among us who has the least, we all know who's looking out for those people, and we all know who's not looking out for those people. And so it's refreshing in that sense. It's that, like, finally somebody is acknowledging that certainly when it comes to economic stuff, certainly when it comes to even foreign policy, you could say, with its anti-war message, like, Christians and socialists or Marxists or communists are one and the same on those issues. They have a tremendous amount of agreement, and nobody ever says it. If anything, the narrative for the longest time has been, well, since socialists and communists and Marxists are overwhelmingly atheistic, therefore they're like the polar opposite of Christians, and there is no room there for agreement. This is busting up that myth here. Because in a sense, it doesn't even matter what you believe about the Almighty or about a deity or a religion, as long as you're actually fighting for the right things and trying to help people in this world. Well, the Pope's like, you're all right with me in that scenario, man. That's the other thing. He said some like interestingly kind things about non-believers, right? Look, it's an attempt to try to bring the church back to where the church should be. Like I said, there's always going to be some disagreements on social policy, I think, right? But when it comes to economic stuff, when it comes to foreign policy stuff and war and corruption, he's kind of based. And he sort of reminded everybody like, hey, dog, I'm just as socialist as you are, homie. Interesting. And by the way, the Pope has been one of the loudest voices from early on, calling what the IDF is doing in Gaza terrorism. It's crazy that we have to look to Catholicism, a dude in a dress, like this dude who's part of some wizard cult type thing, right? The Catholic Church is most known for pedophilia in recent history, but somehow now we're at the point where everything is degraded so thoroughly that this guy's literally a voice of morality and reason on the biggest issue that's happening right now in front of us, which is the slaughter of Gaza. That's incredible. And then now he's leaning into socialist, communist, Marxist. Let's keep it real. We got a lot of agreement here. So for all the Christians out there, however many of you listen to this show, just know, I think his interpretation is the most accurate. That if you are a Christian, man, you're sort of a Marxist before Marxism was a thing. Don't forget that.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.